Have you ever read a manga where as you're reading it, you just had to stop and collect your thoughts? And I mean to actually stop and try to think about what it is you were actually reading. If it made any sense, how it was affecting you, and if you were getting what the author was trying to put out. Well, this has happened to me on almost every single page of the masterpiece of a one-shot called Goodbye Eri by Tatsuki Fujimoto. If this name sounds familiar to you, then it must be because Tatsuki Fujimoto is also the author of the popular series Chainsaw Man, as well as Fire Punch and the other successful one-shot Look Back. But the story of Goodbye Eri eclipses it all in my humble opinion. I went through the rabbit hole of one-shots and came across Goodbye Eri and heard a cavalcade of reviews about this one-shot being the best thing since sliced bread, and once I started reading it, I said to myself, I get it. This manga breaks the barriers of manga itself, having you constantly question if what you're reading is real or not. So for obvious reasons, this isn't a series that you can talk about without spoiling anything. So if you haven't read it, please go and read it, and come back and enjoy the video. Okay, so this manga follows Yuta, a young boy who is told by his mother to film her for the rest of her life up to her final moments as she has a life-threatening illness. And so Yuta does this for every moment of her life, whether it be going out for walks, cooking, and even dinner. He's always filming her every step, and even his own life. But he seemingly can't film her during her final moments as it's almost too real for him, and so he runs away. And as a result, the movie is left unfinished, so Yuta is forced to fill in the missing scenes with his own creation, which in this case is having an explosion happen in the hospital his mother was staying at. And you can imagine this did not bode well for the audience at his school assembly, with many people, including teachers, admonishing him for the move he made for the final scene of his movie. This reaction, coupled with the death of his mother, really put Yuta in a dark space, and after contemplating some dark decisions, he soon meets Eri, one of the few people who truly enjoyed his movie, and asks him to make another one with her as the main character, and this is where things get weird. See, this is the part of the manga where you have a hard time figuring out what is real versus not, what is that Yuta wants you to see versus what really is a part of the movie. Scenes could go on for pages and pages and only to find out that it was just a scene. Or things come across as so real and you have no idea if a scene has ended or another day has begun. Yuta is essentially making a movie of his life up to this very moment, including the movie with his mother, meeting Eri, and everything in between, resulting in a final product. And so it gets really meta to the point where you're not too sure about which part of this is included in the movie, or is it a part of Yuta's life. And as the manga progresses, we get more and more information regarding what really happened in Yuta's life versus what he wanted us to see during his movies. For example, in Yuta's original movie, his mother comes across as a very beautiful and kind woman from every shot he's made, but upon learning more from his father, we find out that that's just how Yuta perceived it in the movie, when in reality, she was a very abusive mother, almost forcing Yuta to do this whenever he didn't want to, and getting to the point where on her final deathbed, she called him useless. Further reinforcing the idea in the manga that things aren't always what they seem, especially in every page, with 2, maybe 3 layers beyond that. Additionally, I haven't been able to touch on the point that the paneling in this one-shot is so amazing that it even acts as a third character in a lot of these scenes, further emphasizing the main story that Fujimoto sensei is trying to push forward, with every panel coming across as a first-person view through the lens of a camera of Yuta's life. And so you'll often see 4 rectangular panels on a given page, often mimicking a reel to give that sense of immersion, including some subtle changes within each of these characters in these shots, whether it be body language, changes in facial expression, or just the dialogue. It helps to make these characters feel extremely real, as if they're being filmed, which they are. There are even multiple pages where no characters are present, but the paneling still remains the same and pushes the dialogue and story forward, further enhancing this realism aspect. I do honestly think this is a culmination of Tatsuki Fujimoto's paneling and art style improving to its absolute peak within this one-shot. You can see subtle changes in how he approaches this from his other works, and it honestly makes the world of a difference. And the influence of Goodbye Eri is heavily felt on part 2 of Chainsaw Man, with many characters, panels, and even just scenes taking inspiration from this one-shot. So, as I mentioned before, it's hard to distinguish what is reality versus what is Yuta's movie throughout the entirety of the manga. But that allows for the greatest gift of all that this manga provides for its viewers. And that is the beauty of interpretation, which is something present in any form of manga, but it's especially important with Goodbye Eri. Which is why I had told you at the beginning of the video to go and read this one-shot for yourself, because your perspective and your experiences would be completely different from what I had. Your view on this entire story could have been an entirely different perspective of this manga than what I have shown you so far, and after scouring online forums and comment sections, I have seen this firsthand, with many people having entirely different takes than what I have had for this manga. Individuals who have thought that certain scenes were still a part of Yuta's movie, or maybe the entire manga itself was a movie. Maybe the ending was real and the supernatural aspects of it were all true. Maybe Yuta's mother really did die in an explosion at the hospital, or maybe the old man we see at the ending of the manga isn't a grown-up version of Yuta, but rather his father helping out to film the video. Maybe, just maybe, at the very ending, Eri is an actual vampire and not a schoolgirl. There are almost hundreds and hundreds of different ways someone can interpret how this story is played out and what the ending means, which is an amazing achievement on its own for any mangaka. To me, I look at this one-shot as a think piece on escapism and how certain individuals will find meaningless distractions in their everyday life to escape from the harsh realities they face on their daily lives. Which is why Yuta's movies come across as romanticized versions of certain people in his daily life, who may not be the best or nicest of people, but come across as amazing individuals on the big screen, like his mother and Eri. And how it becomes extremely difficult for Yuta to film certain scenes that come across as too real, such as his mother's death. The Oxford Dictionary defines escapism as the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. And I think that hits the nail on the head for Yuta's story, especially the degrees of fantasy he likes to sprinkle in certain pieces. So to me, this beautiful manga seems to be the entire culmination of Yuta's movie from beginning to end, whether it be certain aspects that come from his everyday life and certain aspects he's pre-recorded and planned out. And I do think that a huge indicator of that is the final panel we see in this manga, where Yuta is seemingly walking away from an explosion similar to how he did with his mother's death, echoing back to a point that his father made earlier in the series, in which he says that Yuta prefers to sprinkle a little bit of fantasy in any of his projects. But this isn't to say that I'm right, because as I said before, there are a million different ways to interpret what this story is. This manga honestly makes you feel every single emotion possible, whether it be the sadness of the reality each character lives in, the surprises of each plot twist, or just an appreciation for the world Yuta creates. Tatsuki Fujimoto has truly outdone himself and is slowly becoming my favorite author out there. So again, if you haven't done so, please go read Goodbye Eri. Thank you for watching.